So what I'm going to talk about today is what we call now pandemic puppies. And this is something we didn't actually anticipate a couple of years ago. But what happened is that puppies that were born and then adopted at the beginning of the pandemic or during the pandemic, we're seeing certain behavior problems with them because they just haven't been able to get the experiences that they require. And so, number one, of course, is they're isolated. The other thing is, there's no classes. And that tied in with the isolation thing. And that is, we had puppies that were growing up at the time when they should have been going to a training class. And mom and dad were isolated at home, so they weren't able to get out. They weren't able to go and see other people because we were banished from doing that. And at the same time, trainers that had classes going had canceled them, the in-person ones. Some tried to do it on Zoom. But the point is, you weren't able to take your puppy to a class so it could then socialize with all the other puppies in the class, which is so important. And so these guys grew up without that benefit of being able to actually see other dogs or see that many people. And I got an email from one of these clients, and this is one that I've worked with a bit. And she said, talks about COVID puppies, and they got their puppy just as the pandemic was getting going. It was sort of like the summertime, which was actually the worst time at all to grab a new puppy. So, as in now we see it anyway. And so at that point he was playing with some other puppies. They were doing some handling exercises, introducing to different sounds and things. And then things shut down. And so they did a couple of Zoom obedience training with trainers, but the dog didn't socialize with other. Here's the key. He's now dog reactive. And he listens to me well inside the house. That's great. So obviously some training has worked. But once he's outside, if he sees other dogs, he barks like crazy. He's not aggressive. And once he actually is able to meet them and greet them, then he's fine and he plays with other dogs and he's comfortable with people. And so it says, what can we do for something like that? Well, when we're dealing with puppies that had not had the experiences, and the way we saw that before was dogs that were in kennels that didn't get out, so breeding farms, that type of thing. When you had those things going on, these dogs didn't have to see people, they weren't petted by people, they didn't have the touch. At the same time, they didn't see other dogs in a social setting. They were very restricted that way. And so what we did with them is that we had to get them out and desensitize them to what they were seeing. And very simply, we used a program called graded exposure to start with walking dogs down the street so they could see dogs on the other side of the street. And you use your basic obedience to get them to heel, pay attention to you, do things like that. And once you get them used to seeing other dogs and not reacting at a distance, then you can start to move closer and closer. And it depends on the dog and how fast you can do that. The problem with some people is that they're in a hurry, and you can't put a timeline on this, but they're in a hurry, so what happens is they say, oh, my dog was really good on this side of the road, I'm going to go right to the other side of the road and greet whatever dog comes down. And that may work good if you've got like an old lab just sort of plodding along and not paying much reaction, not there to stimulate your dog, versus you've got our dog Shay, when he was younger, he's a 40-pound border collie, and his energy is right up there, and he'd be pulling at the leash saying, hey, can I go and see that other dog? I mean, that's something I had to work on with my dog, doing the graded exposure as well. That's where I learned a lot of these techniques. And so the key is you need to be able to get that program in place. You need to see how to do it. And so if you need some assistance with that, give me a call. I've also got some YouTube videos up, and if you find those, you'll be able to see exactly what we're doing. And those little keys can help you. My goal is to make it so that all dogs have good relationships, as in they're able to be nice and calm, and people like their dogs rather than seeing them as a liability. And we just want to try and make the world better for dogs and their owners. So if you need anything, send me a note, and otherwise, have a great time with your dogs.